The first red flag was the launch party donuts neon icing spelling out, "Let's go," in crooked block letters. I was elbow deep in error logs, while the rest of the team snapped group photos in front of a cardboard rocket cutout like they'd just solved world hunger. Meanwhile, I was quietly chasing a bug that only triggered when a user applied both a loyalty credit and used Google Pay. Lucas, our director of product, told me not to worry. Low priority, he said. This from the same guy who once asked if SQL was that spreadsheet thing. Visionary stuff. It was just me in the co-working lab that Friday night. Lights off in half the space, slurping cold fiho from a takeout container while test cases spun on loop. 2 days till launch, and a rare edge case kept skipping funds verification under a very specific condition. I wrote a trace patch to log the drop point. 1 line, left uncommented. Process just funds. Auts reinstate before prod. My own private caution tape. A soft scream in the middle of a codebase no one else bothered to review. And speaking of warnings, before I ramble too far, quick shout out to the 94% of you listening without following. I get it. Trust takes time. But hitting subscribe, that's like documenting your code. Helps us all sleep at night. Anyway, my name's Ren, 35, payments engineer at a startup called Toora Tech. Or I was up until Lucas blindsided me in a quick sync the morning after that party. Said I wasn't aligned with the company's creative vision. I built their transaction engine from the ground up. When their PayFast integration tanked last spring, it was me rewriting modules at 3 a.m. duct taping endpoints together with cold brew and resentment. I never asked for credit. Just wrote clean code, wrote the docs, stayed quiet. But I started noticing things. Like how they brought in Mason, 23 TikTok resume, because he had charisma and knew the culture. He thought Booleans were a brand. Lucas kept inviting him to planning calls while I was mysteriously left off the chain. Said my comments were too technical. So I made a changelog of my own. Not the one in Git, the one that really mattered. Timestamps, diffs, notes on every module I touched. I knew the writing was on the wall when Lucas scheduled a workflow clarity sync and didn't invite a single engineer. That's like drafting a hurricane evacuation plan and forgetting to tell the boat captains. So I did what I always do my job. Quietly, precisely. One eye already on the exit. I wasn't plotting revenge. I didn't set booby traps. I just built. And when the final sprint landed, I was deep in the trenches, squashing fringe case bugs, isolating recursive hiccups, and cleaning up code paths the others hadn't even seen yet. Meanwhile, Mason and his content team were filming launch day hype reels, posing with our plushy mascot, and workshopping TikTok slogans. There's a unique kind of fatigue that hits when you watch tourists toast a city you paved brick by brick. Release version 3.1.4.7 was the cleanest build I ever shipped. Final integration test, flawless. Payment flow airtight except for one harmless staging flag I hadn't toggled. Just a temporary block to isolate an edge case fail on Google Pay. 1 line. Marked in the code and the docs, in red, bold, all caps, even had a Slack reminder scheduled for Monday at 9:00 a.m. Friday, I got in early. Lucas was already at his desk sipping an oat milk cortado, scrolling Slack like he was day trading tech stonks. He didn't glance up, just motioned, vaguely. Hey, Ren, can you hop into Atlas Room in 10? Quick sync. What I got instead was HR, restructuring, creative cohesion, no further action required. The buzzwords hit like cold toast. Lacey from HR looked like she wanted to evaporate. Handed me a printed exit checklist with my name spelled Ren. No W system access revoked before I could grab my charger. My Slack went dead mid-sentence. I didn't cry, didn't flinch. I walked out back straight just as a notification popped up from Mason. Hey ye, quick. Q, what does sandbox flag? True mean again, LOL 3 days till launch. Pipeline still in test mode. No one watching the repo. Lucas's golden boy calling the shots. I didn't plan revenge, but sometimes revenge just flips the switch on its own. Quick sync with leadership. Lacey mumbled eyes on the floor. I followed her past Lucas's glass-walled ego chamber, where he was fake laughing, into a call, feet kicked up like he was pitching crypto to a yacht club in a Patagonia vest. Our meeting was in conference room C, the one with the flickering light and the faint scent of someone's microwave trout lingering in the walls. Lacey closed the door. Lucas didn't stand. Just tapped on his iPad, didn't look at me, launched into his monologue like he'd rehearsed it in a mirror. "We're realigning teams toward more agile verticals," he said, as if that meant anything. "Refocusing on scalable architecture." Then came the hit. "Your skill set's been foundational. Foundational like drywall, useful until it's painted over and forgotten." He slid a folder across the table. "No severance. Cobra, unclear. Access to my machine already revoked. Effective immediately," Lucas said. "No need to wrap anything up." I asked politely, evenly, if I could push one final patch to prod. "Just a clean-up," I said. "Staging stable, but there's a toggle." "We're good," he interrupted. "Mason's already looped in." Mason, the intern, human vape pen, the guy who once asked if Booleans had middle settings. They escorted me back like I was radioactive. My badge was already void when I swiped it at the elevator. By the time I got home, 6:12 p.m., I was curled up on my couch, glass of Cabernet in hand terminal window closed. No rage, no tweet storm. I just opened my encrypted drive, decrypted my private repo backup, and checked the logs. Build 3.1.4.7, final commit capture funds, reinstate before prod. Still commented out. Flag still true for sandbox. Comment still in plain sight. At 7:03 p.m., I refreshed Slack on my phone. My account was locked, but my alt dev handle. Yeah, I had one, still had read-only access. And that's when I saw it. Mason, in Mao Ang, Maine. Anyone know why payment capture's not working? We're live and nobody's card is charging LOL. No one had noticed. No one had checked. And the parade was already marching. Hey, y'all, what does sandbox flag? True. Do and prod. 3 laughing emojis. Then silence. Then worse, a message clearly meant to be private, but posted in the main engineering thread. From Lucas. Shut that down before finance sees it. Too late. I stared at my screen, heartbeat steady. This wasn't revenge. Not satisfaction either. It was inevitability. You don't fire the firefighter and then act surprised when the building catches. There was no farewell Slack thread. No, "We'll miss you" card with a crumpled $10 Starbucks gift card. Just the quiet humiliation of walking past people pretending not to notice. The stunned silence of those too shocked or too cowardly to say anything. Lucas didn't look up. Mason gave me a pity wave, like I was a substitute teacher getting fired mid-semester. I left my mug on my desk. It said, "Talk is cheap, code is proof." Felt about right. The air outside felt too clean, too light. Like the world didn't yet know what was coming. I didn't drive home right away. Just drove. Windows down, music up. That strange, hollow feeling under the ribs. Not joy, not anger, just release. Like finally unclenching your jaw after hours of silent grinding. By the time I pulled into my apartment, lot dusk had wrapped around the trees like a shrug. My cat Newton greeted me at the door with his usual mixture of indifference and hunger. I fed him, kicked off my shoes, opened my laptop, encrypted volume, local backup, snapshot from 2 days before the purge. There it was, clear as ever. The line staring at me like an ex who still remembered my Wi-Fi password capture funds. Reinstate before production, still commented. Still live. And just beneath it, Mason's proud little copy-paste sandbox flag. True. He never read the note, never flipped the switch. I hovered over the keyboard. Every bone in my body itched to warn someone. File a quiet ticket, Slack a trusted dev, save the launch. But they'd made it clear I wasn't on that ship anymore. So I closed the repo. Didn't delete it, just closed it. Like setting down a grenade and walking away. That weekend, I lived like a civilian. Took walks, Baked banana bread? Listened to a podcast about cult leaders and found myself mentally swapping Charles Manson's name for Lucas's. Weirdly, it fit. But I wasn't at peace. Not really. There's something about unfinished code that claws at your brain like a door left ajar. You don't know what's behind it, you just know it's open. And that's enough to keep you up. So I didn't slam it shut. I did the next best thing. Set up inbox filters. Gmail, Toora Tech account still quietly forwarding to my personal archive. Personal address. Burner address. Keywords locked in urgent Ren launch payment error gateway. Help sandbox WTF. Inbox set to thread. Notifications off except for high priority, just in case. Then I closed my laptop and sat still in the dark, listening to the quiet hum of my fridge and the distant unraveling of a storm no one at Toora Tech saw coming. Crossing a line doesn't always mean a dramatic act. Sometimes it's the stillness that does it the moment you go from fixing everything to watching the cracks spread. They trained me to document everything, so I did. Even the silence. Launch day looked like a tech-themed wedding. Streamers, confetti cannons, cupcakes frosted with the Toora Tech logo. A ring light photo booth with oversized sunglasses and a sign that said, Payment-Powered Future. Lucas made a speech beside the office espresso machine holding a glass of Brut, like he was accepting a Nobel Prize for most LinkedIn engagement. We did it, he grinned. Shirt too tight, eyes glossy from early champagne. To the moon, everyone clapped. Mason filmed a TikTok about our grind set. The CEO posted a blurry selfie with the dev team captioned nothing but respect for my engineers. Funny. Considering 2 had been laid off with me and a third was laughing so hard he had to cover his face. By 11:30 a.m., the homepage was flooded. Promo code Moonshot20 was trending. Influencers were posting unboxings. Threads was hyping it. Twitter called it the Shopify killer. Lucas was retweeting like a raccoon discovering a Whole Foods dumpster. Meanwhile, in a dusty side channel, no one monitored the head of finance posted at 1:07 p.m. Quick Q, anyone seeing actual payments hit the gateway yet? No reply. At 2:42 p.m., we've got 8,000 checkouts recorded. Revenue still at 0. Lucas replied at 3:16 with the emoji and probably reporting lag. Analytics always lags launch. He CC'd Mason, who chimed in, "Ha ha, yeah, same thing happened during my podcast merch drop, LOL." Finance went quiet after that. Meanwhile, the party raged on. Lucas made sure the champagne kept flowing and someone ordered poke bowls on the corporate Amex. A freelance photographer roamed between desks, snapping candid shots of employees clapping at monitors like they'd just discovered time travel. But behind the paper-thin glamour, the cracks were starting to spread. Customer support tickets trickled in first, a few, then a steady stream. Got a confirmation email, but no charge on my card. Received a receipt, but nothing showing in my bank account. Is this a scam? The kind of launch day noise you expect, sure, but louder, more persistent. At 5:38 p.m., it escalated. A B-list influencer named Jillyfit posted to her 300K Instagram followers. OMG, I bought the new Toora drop, and it's everything. Thanks our Toora Tech. 24,000 likes in under an hour. Support checked her order. No payment, no transaction ID, no shipping trigger. Just a ghost record floating in the system, like a wedding crasher who wandered off with a gift bag. Back at the office, the DJ was spinning lo-fi remixes of corporate buzzwords. Lucas lounged on a beanbag, explaining CSC to LTV ratios to a VC intern in Allbirds who looked like he financed a crypto rug pull and called it vision. And in finance, silence. Ice-cold, blinking cursor kind of silence. An internal ping hit Lucas's Slack at 6:12 p. Need 15 min sync, re-gateway anomalies. Some gaps in data, he replied. Loop in Mason. Heading to rooftop for LinkedIn Live. The party rolled on. Toasts. Hashtag selfies. Bestner e-launch vibes trended locally. The espresso machine gave out. They swapped in a cold brew keg like it was wartime morale. But under the fizz and filters, something was rotting. Because eventually, even at a startup, someone sobers up and starts asking, where the hell is the money? That moment came at 8:22 p.m. on Sunday. The office, dark. Slack quiet. Vending machine humming like a sad saxophone. Most of the team was offline, posting weekend wrap-ups, like they'd just returned from orbit. But deep in finance, Marlene, the head of numbers, queen of where is the cash, was sweating bullets. She refreshed the dashboard for the 12th time. Revenue, 0 or zeros. Another refresh. Still 0. She ran a manual dump from the payment vendor's API. Nothing. No transactions. If you're still here, you already know where this is going. Might as well hit subscribe so you don't miss the crash. Not one transaction. Not a misfire. Not a single decline. Just nothing. Marlene opened a fresh email subject line. All caps, need immediate clarity. Urgent body. Lucas, I've checked logs, vendor exports, and the live dashboard. We have 0 recorded payment captures since launch. This is not a reporting lag. This is a functional failure. Marlene Lucas read it at 8:41 p.m. He didn't reply. Instead, he DM'd Mason on Slack, "Yo, can you double-check prod pipeline for payments? Might just be analytics delay." Mason replied at 9:03. "Yeah, def. Do I still use the same creds? You left in Notion, LOL? Yes. Pull latest build. Patricia left it stable." Lucas. The pull happened quietly around 9:30 p.m. No alarms yet. Just a flagged message in a private dev channel labeled with a magnifying glass emoji and the words, "Investigating potential mismatch between TXN logging and gateway capture. Pulling deploy logs from weekend." The logs didn't lie. Last pushed to production, deployed under Lucas's credentials. Carried Patricia's final build tag, Ren's real name in their system. Time-stamped after her termination. Commit traced back to her staging branch. Build was clean. Functional. Passed all tests. But one line was still commented out. Capture funds. And one line, still active sandbox flag. True. Code that worked perfectly, just didn't charge anyone. Then Mason chimed in. Wait, this is a test build. Was this supposed to hit prod? A few seconds later, Marlene posted again. This time in the company-wide finance channel. This is not a dashboard delay. It's a full payment system failure. Someone in IT tried to downplay it, still investigating. Could be a trigger issue. Then Rog from QA, who hadn't spoken all day, typed, "Why is Patricia still the last verified committer before launch? Lucas. That must be a mistake. I handled the merge myself." Raj. Not what Git shows. Then he posted a screenshot. Commit fix Apple Pay loop. Reinstate capture funds. Author Patricia timestamp. 2 days before firing hash matches prod build, the thread went silent for 20 full minutes. Then Marlene posted the final line. You deployed her test commit to prod without checking. And in that silence, Lucas began sweating through his branded hoodie, realizing the product wasn't the only thing that launched that weekend. From liftoff to brick wall, Toora Tech went from airborne to ashes by 7:12 a.m. Monday. The kombucha taps still fizzed in the break room, but the air had curdled. Slack was a morgue. The once hyped Bar Launch Vibes channel was frozen. No more GIFs, no more emojis, no more screenshots of influencers holding the product with sparkles and captions like "Game Changer." Just the quiet desperation of a company trying to claw its way out of a black hole, one chargeback at a time. At 7:45 a.m., Lucas sent a calendar invite clarifying deployment oversight. Mandatory, no agenda, no details. Just that vague panic title you use when the fire is licking your feet, but you're still trying to sound composed. Most expected a spin session. What they got was a live autopsy. Lucas entered 10 minutes late. Sunglasses indoors, hoodie sleeves pushed up like he was about to operate on the truth itself. First, he began tone-heavy hands, clasped like a youth pastor, holding a vague confession. "I want to acknowledge it's been a trying weekend." Understatement of the year. He continued. "We've traced the issue to a specific commit. authored by Patricia Torres prior to her departure. The code appears to have been intentionally misleading. It bypassed the payment gateway entirely. Murmurs. Someone from DevOps muttered, "You just said sabotage." Lucas ignored it. "We're treating this extremely seriously. Legal is involved. We're documenting everything." That part at least was true. Legal was documenting everything, including the hole in Lucas's story, big enough to drive a freight train through. Because the security logs, they were immutable. And they showed Ren's, Patricia's access was revoked at 5:11 p.m., Friday. The production push 6:24 p.m., Friday, deployed using Lucas's own credentials. Patricia had no access, no ability to merge, no permissions to deploy. And that one tiny career-ending detail, already forwarded to outside counsel, copied in real time. Questions started rolling in fast. If she didn't have access, how'd the build go live? Who reviewed the commit? Why was staging deployed straight to prod? Why was the sandbox flag still active? Lucas deflected like he was rallying with a ghost. These things are complex. Post-exit confusion. Unstable variables. Let's not fall into hindsight bias. But the air in the room said otherwise. Someone from customer support finally unmuted and asked, "Are we processing payments now?" Silence. Then a single response from infrastructure, number one word, cold as an invoice. Meanwhile, 136 miles north, Ren sat on the porch of a rented cabin tucked into the pine-dense hills of Mendocino. Coffee warm, laptop closed, phone on Do Not Disturb. The sky hung low and silver. Birds were screaming at each other like tiny territorial gods. A flannel blanket draped across her legs, covered in Newton's cat hair. It was perfect. She didn't watch the meeting live, but her inbox filters lit up like Christmas. Subject lines bloomed, "Re-urgent, payment, fix need." Patricia's context, legal, looping, and clarification on production deploy. She read none of them. Just stared out at the trees, smiled slow and tired. Not smug, just settled. Proud, worn, free. At 11:03 a.m., the CEO dialed into the Toora Tech war room and asked one question: "Have we verified who pushed the faulty build silence again?" Then legal replied, "Yes. We've confirmed it was deployed using Lucas's credentials. We're bringing in a third-party forensics team to preserve chain of custody." That was the pivot. It wasn't just a failed payment system anymore. It was liability, negligence, executable. While leadership scrambled to spin it as sabotage from a rogue ex-employee, the metadata told a different story. The man who preached leading from the front had marched them off a cliff, holding someone else's blueprint. And Ren. She didn't light the fire. She just stopped blowing it out. By Tuesday, the office felt like a haunted WeWork. The once viral product was now radioactive. Slack was a graveyard of half-deleted threads. The All My Launch Vibes channel had been renamed to Tantra General, a feeble attempt at erasure. Every conversation began with "just to clarify" and ended with looping in legal for visibility. The consultants arrived before lunch, suits, clipboards, expressions that said, "You're already toast." By noon, the verdict landed. The deployed build included Patricia's staging commit. The capture funds line was still commented out. The sandbox flag was still set to true. No commits existed between staging and production. Patricia's credentials were terminated before the push. Lucas's admin account made the deployment. And in that moment, no one could pretend it was an accident anymore. There was no ambiguity. The Git history laid it out like a confession, time-stamped indisputable. Lucas had grabbed the last stable build I left in staging, skipped the notes, ignored the flags, and slammed it into production like a toddler jamming a fork into a socket. At 1:14 p.m., legal called an emergency leadership meeting. By 1:32, Marlene had already forwarded the payment logs to our investors. At 2:03, Lucas's name vanished from the org chart. No farewell post, no HR spin. Just gone. By 2:48, Someone in marketing tried to delete the To the Moon campaign folder, but forgot to empty the trash bin. Meanwhile, I was sitting at the tiny kitchen table in my rental cabin sipping tea because I'd already capped my coffee intake for the day. No screens. Just me, Newton curled up like punctuation on the floor, and my leather-bound notebook. No passwords, no pings. Just ink and silence. I flipped to the page dated Friday, the day they fired me. The margins were packed with deployment notes and logic flow from my last sprint. But right in the center of the page, underlined twice, I'd scribbled a sentence. Funny how one character can stop the money. I smiled when I saw it. Not because I meant for this to happen, I didn't. Not because I wanted them to fail, I really didn't. The truth is, I didn't want anything by the end. I was just tired. Tired of being talked over. Tired of Lucas co-opting features he couldn't even spell. Tired of pretending silence was professionalism. They yanked my badge mid-debug, cut my access before I could uncomment a single line. I didn't fight. I didn't explain. I just walked. And they deployed what they didn't understand. By evening, I heard the internal dashboard lit up red revenue system error. Do not use. Support was overwhelmed with refund requests for orders that never processed. Our payment vendor terminated the contract. Gross procedural negligence. Nobody said Lucas's name out loud, but I saw the update. His LinkedIn now read, seeking new opportunities. Builder. Product mind. I closed my notebook, stepped out into the cold, and watched a hawk circle high above the trees. For the first time in months, I felt still. Not vindicated, not smug, just still. Like I had finally set something down that was never mine to carry in the first place. It was Wednesday morning when the email came through. Subject line proposal for short-term advisory engagement. Urgent. Sent from the desk of some external legal consultant I'd never heard of. Toora Tech had never used that firm before. That alone was the first red flag. When lawyers start sending feelers instead of founders, it means there's blood in the water and too many sharks already circling. The message was sugar-coated desperation. Given your unique familiarity with our payment architecture, competitive consulting compensation, mutual resolution. Buzzwords wrapped around a paragraph that smelled like liability management in a tailored suit. No apology, no acknowledgement, not even a limp "we regret how your departure was handled." Just panic. Polished and serifed. I read it on my phone wrapped in wool, watching the fog spill down the ridge behind the cabin. Sipped my coffee, reread the line about their continued trust in my professionalism, and laughed. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. They got my response automatically. Currently offline. Try commenting your own lines. By noon, 2 more emails rolled in. One from HR framed as a reconnect opportunity. One from Mason, still riddled with typos. Hey, Lowell, no pressure, but we'd love her help real quick. Want to make things right. I archived both. Later that afternoon, I got a forwarded email from a former coworker. Subject line, class action notice. Compensation for unprocessed transactions. The list of plaintiffs was growing. Customers who never got their orders. Influencers promised commissions on sales that never happened. Even a mom who went viral, calling the whole thing the Fire Festival of e-commerce. Then came the final anvil. The vendor terminated the contract. Effective, immediately. Reason, gross deployment negligence. Their CTO added a note. You had a good product. Shame it was managed by toddlers with admin access. Slack exploded. Screenshots leaked. Someone anonymously posted the forensic report on Twitter. It trended under "Teach Arm flagged by Lucas." And me, I was already packing. My new job started Monday. A quiet little startup run by 3 former engineers. They believe in clean code and paying their invoices. No Lucases, no Masons, no chaos pretending to be innovation. Just proper code reviews. Reasonable deadlines. Documentation that didn't look like it had been typed in the middle of a panic attack. That night, I kept things quiet. Lit a fire, watched the flames stretch and curl, listened to the wind rattle the windows of the cabin one last time. No dramatic score, no slow motion montage, just the stillness of someone who no longer had to raise her voice to be heard. The silence had done it for me, and they'd heard it loud and clear. At 9:14 a.m. on Thursday, a screenshot landed on Twitter. No caption, just an image, cropped from Toora Tech's internal dashboard. Revenue, day 1, 0 was all year day, 2, 0, 8, day, 3, 0. BEs. Underneath transactions, recorded 12,402 payments captured, 0. No commentary needed. No spin. Just silence, the kind that tightens around your throat. It went viral in under an hour. LinkedIn lit up. Tech Twitter feasted. When culture outpaces competence. The real cost of firing quiet engineers. Sandbox flags and startup fragility. By 11 a.m., the board issued a formal statement. Lucas had stepped down. The CEO resigned. Operations were paused to reassess infrastructure. Translation: the money left and the brains were never there to begin with. Then came the Slack leaks. Mason asking, do we still need a QA lead, or can ChatGPT do that now? Another message. Wait, does sandbox mean beta? They weren't just embarrassing. They were extinct. Support channels returned service unavailable. Refunds were processed manually by a third-party firm. Their office lease, quietly listed online modern open concept space, recently vacated. And me? I was 200 miles away in a modest office with real chairs working heat and coffee that didn't taste like ambition. I logged into my new dev environment. No speeches, no drama. Just a clean repo, a labeled onboarding doc, and a calendar invite titled Welcome Ren. The desk was mine. The coffee was hot. The CTO actually knew what a merge conflict was. Sunlight spilled across my keyboard as I typed my first commit initialized payment service. Confirmed vars set correctly. I paused, smiled, opened my notebook, the same one I carried from the wreckage. Final page. Final line. They taught me to document everything, so I did. I just never said I'd comment it. If you made it this far, thank you for listening, for watching it all unfold with me. I didn't burn bridges. I just stopped fixing what others kept breaking. So if something in my story hit home, drop a comment. Tell me what you would have done, or what you've survived quietly. And if you're still in a place where your voice gets drowned out, here's my advice: document everything. Not for revenge, but for clarity. One day, you'll need the truth not to shout, but to walk away clean. That's what saved me. Quiet doesn't mean weak. It means precise, measured, enough.